Have you ever wondered how such things in the world became to what as they are today? Like, why do we understand and know that there is a solar system? Why is there a day and night? Why do we think? Why do we empathize with people? Why are we behaving in such a way? And how did we become literally what we are right now when it is described in science that we were once apes? Well, folks, that is how the intellectual revolution works. It all started with people exploring the fields they want to have a contribution to. But of course, that was because they were curious. And they want the world to gain knowledge, wisdom, that there is an explanation of how things work in a certain way. And that such problems can be solved if the cause is understood well, making our lives easier. There are three intellectual revolutionists. Wanna know who they are? Of course, I'm going to share it since this is an educational video after all.
Okay.
Ladies and gentlemen, let us welcome Mr. Nicolaus Copernicus, Mr. Charles Darwin, and Mr. Sigmund Freud. Let us start with the Copernicus revolution. Back then, people were curious, why is there a day and why is there a night? I mean, if we were living back then at their time, we would become curious cats as well, why the world is bright and dark at a certain time. People at that time were curious as well, why are there stars, moons, and how do planets work? Why is it there? Okay, so you may be asking, how did the people know that planets existed back then when they literally have no idea what was going on? Galileo Galilei's telescope already existed during that time, meaning it was already invented, and people started becoming curious of what was really out there in the sky. Well, imagine you are in an island and it was your first time there, and the land was massive. And every part you look at the island, there are wonders you want to explore. Because you are curious, you started exploring the place. See, that's how people felt back then. There were many Greek philosophers that attempted to explain why there is a day and night, and how the heavenly bodies worked and their effects on the world. One of which is Mr. Claudius Ptolemy, a famous philosopher and an astronomer. He created the geocentrism model, where it explained that the center of the universe was the Earth, and that other heavenly bodies like the sun and the moon are what's revolving around it, explaining the days and nights. Like, what? Come to think of it, that theory once solved a lot of problems because first, there are other planets. If the Earth was at the center, so where are the other planets? The geocentrism model won't solve anything because it doesn't make any sense. Okay, it doesn't make any sense because I already have the knowledge. I understand why there is a day and night. But people back then accepted the model as it explains why there is a day and night, and because of this, it was one of the greatest discoveries at that time. Okay, so you may be asking now, Chloe, why are you talking about Ptolemy? You were supposed to talk about Copernicus. Just wait, okay? We're getting there. This is just a little backstory. During the 16th century, this is where Copernicus comes in, a Polish mathematician and astronomer. He challenged the model of Ptolemy, also known as the Ptolemaic model, wherein he introduced the heliocentrism model. He was probably like, Ptolemy, your geocentrism model does not make any sense at all, so I present to you a better model. That is just a little spice from a video, okay? Do not attack me.
Okay.
Copernicus' heliocentrism model explained that the center of the universe was the sun and that the Earth was one of the planets that revolved around it, as well as the other heavenly bodies. But of course, this concept was rejected by a lot of people back then because it contradicted to their religious belief that the Earth was created first before all other things, and people started persecuting Copernicus because his teachings contradicted religion. But this is science, baby, not theology. Through time, astronomers started accepting Copernicus' concept of the universe because his heliocentrism model simplified how the solar system works, and it answered problems that cannot be answered by the geocentrism model. And then, works supporting the geocentrism concept started to emerge, which then was accepted by a lot of people, naming the era as the birth of the modern astronomy. And because of this, the people's thoughts and beliefs started shaping up, which made them much more curious how everything works, which leads us to the Darwinian Revolution. Charles Darwin's concept on the origin of species became one of the most controversial intellectual revolutions during 1859. Origin of Species is actually a book which started the Darwinian Revolution, where the theory of evolution was introduced. It explained that every species went through natural selection, that only the fittest would survive, which actually means that those species that adapted to their environment are the ones that are able to survive and in reproducing, and because of their adaptation, these species will gradually change to fit their lifestyle to their environment. And yes, this process is called the evolution. Of course, just like any other people from the Copernicus revolution, people did not accept the theory of evolution because they believe that the source of life is the powerful creator. But again, this is science, baby, not theology. So, talking about contradiction between science and religion, of course, the theory sprouted at such a time, and because of this conflict, the people that believed in science and that the people believed in religion were divided, and a massive debate between science and religion sparked. But through time, the people finally got into their senses that the theory of evolution by Charles Darwin and their belief on the source of life can coexist. Last but not the least is the Freudian Revolution. Folks, we all know that psychology is under the field of science, right? Psychology students are going to agree, and yes, it's hard. But back then, it was considered an art and not a science because it was classified under philosophy, wherein it has no scientific basis at all. It was just purely made up. This was then during the 19th century where Sigmund Freud changed the people's perception about psychology, thanks to his theory of psychoanalysis, wherein it explained that the human behavior is caused by conscious and unconscious factors because of the three conflicting elements, the id, ego, and the superego. But guess what? This was dismissed by science hardliners because, again, it had no empirical or experimental data for scientific basis, and it felt philosophical and supernatural. Well, psychology students are probably done with people telling them to guess what's on their mind, right? Anywho, since Freud was persistent to share his knowledge, his findings, his concept to the world that psychology is under the field of science, he continued on working and refining his theory of psychoanalysis, despite of the criticisms he received, because he believed that the theory can be of help to treat mental disorders through a clinical method. And finally, people started to understand that the concepts of psychoanalysis and realized that psychology is truly indeed a science. There are many scientific ideas that contributed to the shaping of the nation, but these three revolutionizing theories became the basis of change on the people's perspectives and perceptions to the science realm. This explains how everything that exists and is working right now is always connected to humanity by science. And because of this, the people will grow to be much more curious, which will lead to discovering of new knowledge, deepening their understanding of the world and the universe, which will then continue the shaping of the people's thoughts and beliefs. This is science, baby, not theology. Before I end this video, I just want you all to know that this YouTube channel is for school purposes only. But if you want to see me more in the future, then feel free to comment down below your topic suggestions and I will surely research it and share it to everyone. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and turn on the notification bell so you will be updated by future videos. Thank you so much for watching. Goodbye, and I'll see you in my next video.